Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining this morning's webinar, The Digital Accountant. Just a little bit of housekeeping before we get started. If I could ask that throughout the webinar, everybody remains muted. It just ensures the quality of the audio for the webinar. We'll ask you if you have any questions towards the end of the webinar, but in the interim, please feel free to pop those questions in the chat panel and we'll aim to answer them as we go along at the same time. I'm going to be passing you over to Zdenka de Borge. She is one of our account executives for Interworks Europe. And today we have Sam Ellis, who is the head of finance for Interworks. So I'll pass you over to Zdenka. Thank you.
Hello, good morning, everybody. Thank you very much, Vicky, for just introducing us. As you said, my name is Zdenka de Borge, and I'm responsible for accounts and customers and clients here within the Benelux area. I am gonna share my screen also to give you some insights who we are and what we are doing. So let me check one more time. I think I'm sharing my screen. It looks good. As you know, we are at the moment part why this webinar is actually even happening is a part of the Holland FinTech community, and they are organizing this week Amsterdam FinTech Week, and we as Interworks, we are contributing with 4 different webinars, mainly with regards to business intelligence and analytics, and also artificial intelligence, which is on Friday. So you can still sign up to other events, which are still ahead. But we have a special workshop today, which I actually haven't experienced before, and I'm very proud of my colleague Sam, who will later on give us let's say the introduction how it works for him as an accountant, which is fantastic opportunity. But okay, so we are Interworks, and Interworks, we are full stack consultancy company. We started in 1996, as you can see on my slide, in Stillwater, Oklahoma, in the USA. And we started as, let's say, a company who was not in the beginning BI or AI, because those topics were a little bit different and a little bit futuristic. But yeah, we started to lay cables with the companies. We became Dell partners in 2001. But later on, 2009, of course, to stay in the business and seeing, okay, how we can help customers with the data and digitalization. As we know, these days, it's everything about it. And in case you want to stay data driven, we started to help customers representing a Tableau company, which became part of Salesforce last year. And so we help customers with visualization, dashboarding, and I think this is one of our biggest domain. Since our foundation, we have achieved many milestones, not just only services, what we provide, but also geographically. So we grew up out of USA, into the UK, mainland team here in Europe, also Benelux, the DACH region, so German-speaking countries. And then further, we went also to Australia and Singapore, which has been open our offices in 2018. So we are trying to provide also 24/5 consultancy services. When we start something in UK, our colleagues, for example, in US can follow up on advisory services. So what we do is, these days, as I mentioned, we are all of data. So we help. We like to talk to people, to companies, how they manage their data strategy and data management. We know that it's, as I said, so when we have a BI analytics, companies create loads of data, it has been generated, then you look into it retrospectively, okay, what the data actually, what can read out of the data, right? Those are the insights and how you want to read it the easiest way. But yeah, as we continue, people like to follow up and see, okay, what's going to happen in the future also, right? So you do predictive analytics. You can these days use those data part of machine learning and deep learning and AI. So this is what we are also advising about. And just to manage to go back to BI, we partner, as I mentioned, with Tableau a lot, and we help also with enablement of when, for example, companies buy licenses of Tableau. Doesn't mean that everybody is going to use it, because of course you need training, you need helping with user enablement. Yeah, and this is also what we can do, providing trainings, consultancy, and so on. Those are actually our partners, or we are partners of those companies, if you can see. We start with Tableau. We are also partners of Interworks, Exasol, German company, Snowflake. You probably heard about IPO going live last week. Next to that, we also know how to help you with your data engineering. So when you have your data in a data warehouse like Snowflake, then you need to get them, for example, into the Tableau. So prepare them, right? So our partner is Matillion from point of view of ETL approach. And to close my part, yeah, I just want to show you also we are proud of being involved in projects at different kind of companies. I'm very proud, for example, being part of Nike, where we are helping with embedded analytics portal solution, which we had webinar yesterday, which is also very nice that you can involve many different dashboards into one place. And this is what we want all, right? It makes our experience easier and life in the end a little bit easier. So stopping with that, I will continue and give a word to Sam. So enjoy, everybody. And if in case you have any questions later on, I will follow up with you. If there are any questions, we need to follow up because we didn't have enough time. I'm there for you. So that's my name. And Sam is going to follow up. Thank you.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining us today. I'm just going to get myself set up and share my screen. Okay, so Zdenka, can you just give me a thumbs up? You can see my screen.
Yes, I do. I do see it. Great.
Perfect. Okay, so as Zdenka said, my background is accounting. I'm the head of finance at Interworks Europe, which is a data and technology consulting firm. I actually started in a traditional way in practice. So I started training in a accounting practice, stayed there for around about 6 years, and got a bit of itchy feet and moved on into industry. Which is where I thought the fun would happen, and indeed that is exactly what happened. So for the last 7 years of that, I have been in data consultancy practices, and during that time I became a member and helped found the ACCA's Global Technology Forum, which brings together finance executives from across the globe and provides thought leadership into ACCA. And in general, I am a very fond lover of Excel, which maybe others are on this call as well, and that hasn't changed. But I'm also a bit of a data geek and a big fan of technology. So, you know, especially in recent times, I've moved into using some more modern technologies, and we're going to cover off some of those today. And like you on the call, I have been to a number of these webinars. I'm going to try and distill as much as I can down in this short session and try and give you some tangible things to take away. So Excel was my go-to tool for data analysis and reporting. My thought process was mainly along the lines of, I need to do some analysis on some data in our systems, or I need to run some calculations for colleagues in other departments on some of their data. So I'm going to export that, or I'm going to copy and paste that into an Excel file or a CSV, or I might get my colleagues to email me a copy of their data, not really knowing what format that would be in, but again, I knew Excel would be able to handle it, and I knew in Excel I could properly analyze the data that I wanted to. I can shape the data exactly how I want to. I can create columns to add different dimensions to the data. I can insert rows to add calculations and totals. And I can use a load of formulas to look up data from separate sheets and bring it all into the place I wanted. My reporting, whether in Excel or in the source system itself, was mainly created in a silo and shared mainly with the standard stakeholder base that you quite possibly come across, which is the executive team, the shareholders, managing director, chairman, etc. And there were times when colleagues in professional services, sales and marketing required certain metrics and reports. So I generally create these as one-offs. I didn't really have the many institutionalized reports at the start, so it was just, who needs this? I'll go and produce that in Excel and send it off, and then move on to the next one. And this I associate with a typical Excel mindset. It's creating and building one-off custom reports, which aren't necessarily designed at the outset to be repeatable or shareable. So it meant that after a very short time in this particular firm that I'm in now, which is rapidly growing, I started to see the limitations of the traditional approach. So I could see the manual effort required to produce regular outputs of custom reporting just wasn't going to be scalable in the long run. But it did take me some time to be convinced that an alternative tool would provide the solution I needed. When I was shown a modern data analytics tool for the first time, for instance, Tableau, I almost immediately became a bit guarded, a bit defensive over this different approach, the different process, and really the different methodology behind building analytics out in a modern tool. As compared to Excel, which I knew for me was tried and tested. So to consider making a change, I really just had to open my mind and really just let the evolution happen from there. So a lot of my workbooks, Excel workbooks, became quite large. And again, you may find similarities with your own environment here. You can easily create, an Excel workbook with 10 sheets, maybe 20, 30 plus sheets. And these, being honest, were often very complex. And when I returned the following month or the following quarter to try and update the numbers with new data, I spent a lot of time refreshing myself just on what I'd built, why I built it in that particular way, and where the numbers came from, throughout all the different sheets. I'd be tracking down numbers buried in the depths of the workbooks, and I didn't really feel like I was giving the optimal experience to my colleagues. But this was the traditional approach, so I didn't really question it too much. I knew we'd eventually get to the answers that we needed. So I knew my Excel toolkit very well. I thought it had all the functions I needed. So what was wrong with that? What could possibly go wrong with a 30+ worksheet Excel book? And I thought, why do I need this other technology? So if we're honest with ourselves as experienced, advanced, super advanced users of Excel, we know there's a few secrets about the analysis and data prep in Excel. So we know that it's prone to human error. You know, maybe not updating formulas correctly to include all the new data. When we insert or paste in new data, we have to run a lot of cross checks to make sure all the data is included in our calcs. And deep down, we know there's a small chance something didn't quite work. We also expect on a data refresh that the cross checks will be kicked out of balance. We know something's going to slightly go off, and we'll have to allow a reasonable chunk of time to track down those differences. So don't get me wrong. I quite like it's quite good fun to track down differences, right? It's like a mini data quest. It's like an adventure into the forensics of the data. You know, we pat ourselves on the back when we find these little differences. But here's the kicker: we don't always have the time to go on these adventures. So really, is there a better way? And what if there were no differences on data refresh? Those days or weeks of finding differences become fresh and new time handed back to you to spend on the reaction to the data analysis, spending time determining cause and effect, spending more time distilling down the mass of data analytics into concise and meaningful insights for your business to make decisions on. We also know Excel is complex and hard to use outside of the finance department. So think about the last time you sent an Excel workbook to a colleague in marketing, maybe a colleague in sales. Did they understand how to interrogate the analysis? It's hard to share in a simple visual format. It becomes cumbersome very quickly, and it crashes if there's too much data or calculations to perform. Yes, it has a macro function, but that's very, very complex and not really user-friendly at all. And it's hard to interrogate on the fly. You know, for example, if you're in a meeting and a colleague asks you to change a date range, maybe exclude a territory from an analysis, you probably say, yep, that's fine, but I'll go away, make those edits, and I'll email you over the updated analysis. And at that point, and this is a key point, the trail of thought dies off. That person was going somewhere with their thought process. They wanted the answer right there, and they want to click through their thoughts, make the decision right there. So if we're going away for a day and then resending that updated analysis, we're losing that pace of decision making. And sometimes Excel workbooks, they get really complicated. And I don't know if you've got any of these in your business, but some of them get so complicated that it's only the person that built it that really knows how to update it. And actually to pass that on to someone else, say they leave, they have to actually fully train someone on an Excel workbook, which is crazy because you're not training them on the program, you're actually telling them how you maintain this mammoth, complex data model. So there's another secret, and maybe something you haven't thought about it like this before, but Excel is a hybrid tool. It's a database and an analysis tool. You can plug data straight into a sheet. You can create a bar chart straight from that data. But is a hybrid tool a good or a bad thing? Have you considered that question? Does having a hybrid tool limit the functionality of one side or the other? And the short answer is yes. As a database, it can only handle around maybe 200,000, 250,000 rows by maybe 20 or 30 columns before it starts to slow down and build out any complex calculations on top of that and some visuals, and you're just into spontaneous crash territory, which is devastating for us because we lose a great deal of our progress to date. And Excel was never built from the beginning to be a scalable database. As an analytics tool, it's average at best. Yes, it can do pivot tables and pivot charts and regular charts, but these aren't particularly easy to build. And they're even worse to maintain or interrogate, and very cumbersome to put into a clean, shareable, concise dashboard. So what's the solution? Well, this is where, the evolution, I feel, of my role came in. So I thought, I'm in this business, and I need a modern tool built from the ground up to be a data preparation and analytics tool, and one that's intuitive, works kind of like my iPhone. I want to be able to drag and drop and do things without too much, too much training or thought. I want it to be shareable, robust. I want to be able to rely on it, and I want it to cope with the ever increasing volume of data that I have to deal with, and the number of data sources. So for us in particular, we use Tableau. So for me personally, this is where Tableau came into play. Tableau is one of the top data analytics softwares on the market. You can check out Gartner's Magic Quadrant for the rankings, which is an independent report. There are a couple of other good ones. There's Microsoft Power BI, which you may have come across in your O365. There's also Click, and there's probably 20, 30 other ones that are just not as good. They do similar things, but Tableau is our firm's tool of choice because we believe it is the best in the class. It's very well established and can be used in small, one license style, or many hundreds of licenses or thousands of licenses. So it has a complete small business to enterprise approach. So just in the basic nutshell, what does a tool like this look like? And this is kind of common across other tools as well. But we're able to enable users, and again, that's a really important key point here. Excel is not set out to enable users, and nor are some of the other traditional tools. But Tableau has decided, we've got to enable people to analyze from multiple data sources. We want you to be able to combine data sets. That shouldn't be a painful experience. We want you to be able to set up a data model to prepare and clean your data. So you're flushing data in, it can be prepared, prepared for you. And we want you to be able to automate your reporting. And automation is one of those great time-saving processes. So for accountants and finance professionals, for me, this is where our paradigms change a little bit. So some of the old, the age-old paradigms, reporting the past, is of course, that's still required. But here I talked earlier about the evolution of what we do. So we're moving into a period where presenting large tables of information on the past, it just simply isn't sufficient to cover all the business's needs. We need to move into a more analytical approach, using current, up-to-the-minute data to present across the business and enable fast and data-backed decision-making. By moving along the trenches and talking to those with different needs, we can assess their needs versus the data that we hold. We can provide them with the information and analytics they need and partner with them and have a cycle of checking they have everything they need based on the business's changes, systems changes, market changes, data source changes. A lot can change, and we need to keep our finger on the pulse. So the new paradigms in accounting are, they're sharing, partnering, innovating, automating, optimizing, continual improvement, evolution, user experience, and convenience. And perhaps some of these, you're already nodding your head going, well, I'm doing this already. Well, that's great. You'll be in the top quartile of marking out what is a modern accountant. And all these form part of the experience and the value we give to businesses. And they're actually borrowed from the best parts of the Industrial Revolution, the fourth Industrial Revolution with IoT and technology. So this is not, it's not inventing something from scratch. This is just moving some of their approaches into our industry. As I say, I need to make clear, I'm not saying let's all move away from Excel. Excel is sufficient in certain circumstances, but we're updating the paradigms here. We're evolving with the needs of the stakeholders. So we're just saying Excel is here to stay, but I also need that modern tool. So for me, using Tableau and Excel is about working out what I need, why I need it, and using the appropriate tool. If I'm crunching some data, which I know I don't need to share, I know I don't need to repeat it, I need something to very quickly prove an assertion or a theory, before I move it into a modern tool, if I need something to cope with a small data set and answer an obscure question, I'll just jump to Excel and just crunch it out and just bin it afterwards. However, if I need to entrench my analysis or report or make my analysis accessible to others and available on a regular cadence for information, analytics, decision-making and actions, I'm going to jump straight to Tableau. This is the majority of what I do. So you can see how Tableau, this modern tool, became my tool of choice. A large part of the accountant's work is logical and repeated, and that's the beauty of this. We can easily build out the model in Tableau to make light of this type of work. Time started to return to me in large chunks, so I was able to scale with the business's growth. We opened multiple regions and we hired more staff during my time, and we've kept a very light finance team headcount and managed to provide the business with the value during the growth. So the tool is flexible enough that we can pivot from one type of analysis or KPIs to another with a very low demand on our time. So by building the right dashboards, spending time getting feedback from stakeholders, we found that they can answer their questions using our work. And it doesn't require them to come to us every day or every week or every month for updates. It might sound counterintuitive, like, oh, they don't need us anymore. We've just automated away all our work. No, that's not at all the case. They find finance more valuable because we've empowered them, given them a way to make decisions themselves backed by data. We'll keep talking to them and making sure their questions are answered. Every year is different in a business, so the questions are going to change. The strategy is updated, so we continue to play a part and modernize in an ever-changing business. So think of it this way, the iPhone, right? It worked well when it was released. It did everything we needed, made calls, sent texts, receive emails. It also did things we didn't know we needed. It started to store photos in the cloud, track its own location, count our steps, provide apps to manage our daily lives. If the developers had thought, hey, we've designed this perfect tool, we can retire now, we'll go and lie on a beach in Barbados, Apple would have just sunk. Instead, they realized this was just the beginning of a huge journey for them and consumers to where we are today. So why can't accounting and finance take a similar approach? We build, we automate, we optimize, then we innovate, then we repeat. So there's a few key questions to consider at the outset of data analysis. And this is, I promise you, where the evolution of our work comes in. If we can move away from our automated, traditional and default approach to data analytics and reporting, we'll spend much more time figuring out the value of it, as opposed to doing the same things just through inertia. Before looking at those, it's worth mentioning that you can and should ask for help during this process. It isn't all down to you to make all of the improvements. So not only should you involve your finance team, you should also involve other functions in the business, as the end results, the dashboards, which can be deployed across those different parts of the business. It's also worth considering expert help from those in your business that already use a modern analytics tool. Has someone else already started to use Tableau? Can you leverage some of their experience? Even if that takes a little bit of humility. I mean, finance people shouldn't need to ask others how to analyze data, right? You'll probably find that others are pleasantly surprised. You're reaching out to them for help. Ask your IT team, who know your systems and your databases and how it's all attached together. That will help you understand the data sets available now and what is or isn't possible to access using more modern tools. And here's a tip. I would say maybe 99% of data is accessible in some way. So if they say no, just say, look, there's always a way to access data. And if, finally, you should seek expert help from external experts, and mainly those who are, the top tier partners of the OEM vendors. So for help with Tableau, we as a gold partner of Tableau provide support via Assist, via our consulting team. As Zdenka said earlier, we can help with training and implementation. So it's not just you need help from consulting, it's all the way through the business to make sure adoption and you have good adoption of the product and really successful experience to really help comes from everyone there and assistance. So here's just a few questions I'm now asking myself before I approach analytics. There is a fuller list, so if you want that, after this event, just hook up with Zdenka or me on LinkedIn, and we can get those over to you. So take a look at these questions, and if you try and answer these questions with Excel in mind as your solution, you're going to quickly hit on the limitations. And these aren't particularly out there questions. These are standard now. And if you do think, right, I'm an Excel ninja, I can easily do this in Excel, it actually is going to be a painful experience. We know it's not easy to do these things in Excel. So alternatively, you can switch to the modern data analytics tool and make all this work relatively easy. You can have it all without compromising, without spending a ton of time, building these complex workbooks. Right, how do I start visualizing data? Well, first of all, you need some data. Ideally, you're connecting to the data in a source system, either directly to the system itself or via a middleman database. You might connect directly to, for example, Salesforce and analyze the data in the source tables, or you might have an extract job, which very possibly is built by your IT team, which extracts data from the source and pumps it into maybe SQL Server or MySQL, or even Excel. The advantage being connected to the data source is that your analytics are going to be based on the most up-to-date data, And also, really key point, it's the closest possible distance from the source of the data, the closest being the actual system itself, analyzing the data that it holds itself. The source data can be referred to as the single source of the truth. And it's worth bearing in mind that the more layers you add in between your source data and the analytics tool, the further away you're getting from that source. Therefore, each layer is adding a degree of risk, a variation of the source data. If, however, you have disciplined data modeling on the way through, the risk can be mitigated away. So the least best practice scenario is basically exporting the data into Excel, doing a load of custom calculations and data manipulation. And this is, perhaps you can appreciate is a very risky way of handling data, which is going to be used ultimately by multiple functions to make decisions in the business. So I did mention the 3 tools earlier. The 3 top tools on the Gartner report are Tableau, Power BI, and Click. And Tableau itself, this tool has been on this list for many years. We're talking 6+ years at the top of this list, being a visionary tool and being a leader. So let's have a look at a case where we're going to actually use the tool. So here, quite a common sight in my world, and I'm guessing in the finance world, you're very familiar with a data structure structured in columns and rows, where each row contains a unique data record, for example, a financial transaction, and each column contains the attributes of that record. So that might be date, location, SKU, or category. This particular data set is just an example data set, includes about 200,000 data points or cells containing data. It's not particularly large, but it's not insignificant. So let's pose a few questions, and if you can mentally compute with me here, very broadly, the time it would take you in Excel to answer the questions, and how you would best present those answers. To give you a steer on the second part, I'm going to suggest we use a modern visual approach, where the answers are presented in the charts of your choice. So here are the questions. What are the best performing countries by revenue in 2019? What is the best performing category by profit in 2019? What are the performance trends over all time? And are there any outlier categories in 2019? So again, just to repose the question, you're going to jump to your favorite tool and you're going to run those, answer those questions. How long is that going to take you? So in Tableau, I've built out a dashboard showing the answers to the questions. And it took me about 15 minutes. So just go back to your mental calc and, in Excel, where would you be in 15 minutes? Would you have anything representing this kind of visual format? So from the top left, I can quickly see France sticking out as being the darkest color. That was the top country by revenues, followed by, looks like that, Germany, UK, and Italy and Spain. So if I take a look at the top right, I can see both the revenue and profits are trending up. So good business here, trending up over the last 3 years. Profit looks like a steeper trend line to me. So I might want to drill down into profit and see what the cause of that was. Maybe it relates to a particular region, maybe a category. Moving down to the bottom left, I can see office supplies are the top category by profit. I might want to drill down and see if all of the orders were profitable, because maybe overall the category is profitable, but there are some, perhaps there's some loss-making subcategories in there. Furniture, that jumps out as a comparatively low profit product line. So again, I'd be looking to drill down into this with my colleagues from furniture and investigate. And then moving to the scatter plot on the bottom right, I'm looking to find out, were there any outlier orders? Do you remember the question? You know, were there any outliers? And it was quite an open question, but here it is. Scatters are great for identifying outliers. Here I'm comparing sale amount and profit per order. I've colored by category, and I can see straight away, you know, this is within seconds, there are a bunch of orders below the profit line, and I need to ask, why are these making a loss? You know, the outliers are actually at the edge of the chart, which is, again, this is why we use the scatters. There's quite a few loss-making furniture orders, but those bottom three, can you see them? The purple ones at the bottom, they really stand out to me. So they're fairly large transactions, and they were loss-making. So, you know, I'm thinking, were they from a particular region? Can I trace these back to a particular sales period? You know, again, I'd be using this tool to investigate these. And all of this interrogation is very natural in an analytics program like this. So let's interrogate one of these questions. So the first simple interrogation is using what is a built-in filter system. So with one click, I'm able to tell Tableau to filter all the visuals in this view based on a country I choose. In this case, I want to look at France. You know, the best performing country, and I'm with the country managers. So here I click on France, and in what, a second, the analytics only shows the figures for that region. I've also created this simple color indicator up there on the top right for profit and loss. So again, in a couple of seconds, I can see, you know, I'm going to ask the country managers about those months showing the losses. You know, this is not about throwing people under a bus. This is about just genuinely investigating for all of our benefits what happened in those. So what if I want to interrogate maybe the categories in this region? So with a couple more clicks, and again, I'm just going to go back to the original question. You know, imagine you're in Excel or your favorite tool here, and you're trying to roll through this, go from the overview to the region to the category. It's one click and one click and one click for me here. So this is, again, I'm trying to just compound that value you're getting from this tool. So with a couple more clicks, I can introduce category as another filter. So France and then furniture. And you know, if you take a look at the bottom left, I've clicked on furniture. As I saw, there's those few outlier orders which were loss-making. And this has filtered out all the other categories, so all the other noise is removed from the analysis on the right. So I can see there were quite a few months where this category made losses. Also, there were a few outlier orders which showed you know, those relatively large losses. So again, from here, I'd be going into the underlying source orders table with the country management team, and we'd be taking a look together to say, hey, there's this order, made this loss, great revenue performance. You know, the benefit of exploring this together and on the fly is we can make the decisions and take the actions when we find the stuff. We'll review it again in you know, weeks and months, but this is, can we make a decision right now based on the data we have at this very second? not reviewing 7 months old data. This is today's data, and we're looking at it. So a quick question here: how do I leave this dashboard in the hands of the country managers? I don't want to take this away from them and just go, I'll come back to you with this again. The answer is definitely not to leave them with a static copy of the data that goes out of date, becomes more out of date every day. I want to leave them with a live dashboard, which updates for me at the exact same time it updates for them. So we're always looking at the same figures. And this makes it so much easier to have the performance conversation, which aren't always comfortable conversations to have. We don't first have to talk about, why are our figures slightly different to yours? The country managers are saying, hey, revenues are 1 million, and we're saying, oh no, they're not 1 million, they're 0.9 million. And then in my experience, it not only kills time having these differences, it kills the trust in the numbers. We trust our numbers, their numbers are slightly better, so of course they trust their numbers, and then we spend a lot of time working out why is there a difference, and all of that is a complete waste of time. So let's have a look. Just very briefly, we're running towards the end of time here, so we're going to have a look briefly at how do we share a dashboard. So for me, the key factors about sharing: one, we want it to be accessible via their internet browser, via Chrome or Edge, whatever they use, and we want it to be available across desktop, but also mobile devices. Some people want to check things out in the car or on the train or on their flight, and we want to be able to govern who can access it. We don't want to just share this to everybody. And lastly, we want to enable subscriptions. Okay, so this is again back to that evolution and the new paradigm of sharing, giving people access. So subscriptions are basically like you've subscribed to BBC News or Sky, sports updates, whatever it is. This is subscribing to a data dashboard, which gives you daily updates on where things are. So with modern data software, the server publishing element is baked in. I've shown here the same dashboard we've been looking at, but it's in Chrome. Okay, it doesn't look hardly any different to my desktop version, but this is actually in my browser. It has some added features of secured access. Only you have to log in to access it. Data alerts, as I said, subscribing to email updates. You can flip through multiple dashboards to interrogate different aspects, not just limited to just one view. And if I was building out content for mobile, I can just replicate this view and just shrink it down, maybe only show one of the charts for mobile view. So it's very customizable, and this is what a modern tool will do for you. Okay, so one quick bit of time on this final feature, which is the joining and unioning feature. Okay, so this view here is joining 16 separate tables of data by simply dragging and dropping the tables into the data source model, which is what you can see on the screen. You can see it linked by unique identifiers. So for example, I want to join my transaction data tables containing information about general ledger accounts to the accounting period table, to the sales inventory movement table, along with the purchase order table. This is really an incredible feature. It has made light work of so much of my data analysis. So just a quick question then: if you had to join together 16 separate tables, would it be beneficial to go to your traditional tool, or if you had a more modern tool and could do this in, say, 10 minutes, would that be more beneficial and more value to you? Okay, so it probably just felt like we're only just getting started and getting stuck into that tool. So I'm sorry I didn't have time to show you more of the features of this tool. By the way, all these dashboards are easily replicated by anyone here. Okay, so just by downloading a trial of Tableau Desktop, and you can follow their introduction to visualization videos. Let us know if you have a go. I can send you a copy of my dashboard, so you can just very quickly see how how I put it together. So yeah, this is really just a brief glimpse into how our roles are evolving and how modern tools are playing an integral part. These tools provide the key to us, unlocking our potential, adding new value to businesses, but it also needs us to be open-minded and progressive. And the opportunity is to remain relevant and valuable to the business that we work in. Thanks so much for attending. I hope you took something away from this, and if you have any questions, please reach out.
If I would like to say that if somebody would be interested, we are organizing tomorrow also actually webinar, similar webinar. I will just post the link now in the chat, because there my colleague, consultant Steve, will show actually interactively how you can play with Excel and Tableau. So we show screenshots from Sam's presentation, right? But if you tomorrow really want to have a little bit, not hands-on, but they will show you how to combine data, how to create those dashboards, and in the tool like that, feel free to register.
Wonderful. Thank you, Zdenka. If there are any questions, we're quite a small group, so please feel free to unmute your line. Alternatively, please feel free to pop them in the chat panel. We'll leave the line open for a few more minutes, just while we've got Sam on this call. So if you do have any questions, please feel free to ask them now.
Hey Sam, so Mark Healy from National Australia Bank. Just a question. Well, I've got a few minutes. You see yourself working in finance. What use cases do you have, and how do you use it day to day?
Well, it's such a flexible tool. It's really not limited in terms of use cases. But for me, it's just some of the basic stuff, like changing our P&L reporting into, instead of being a monthly cycle, you have the month-end close. We actually have a live P&L now. So every day the execs can come in and they're looking at where, if we've had a number of orders, how has that impacted the profit for that month. So that's definitely one use case. Another, not so much finance, but we built out a utilization dashboard. So this is where we go into consulting and we see how are we optimizing the consulting team. So every assignment that would come in for work, we'd be able to represent that on the dashboard and see who had lots of work, who didn't have much work, what region was busy or not busy. So those are two particular use cases for us.
I can also maybe share a use case from my side, from the sales team. We are using Salesforce internally, where I have my opportunities, and we put an embedded Tableau visualization in my part, for example, opportunities, which are open. What is the stage in comparison to the whole team? What is the forecast in the future? What I have closed in the past, for example. And it's immediately being seen like comparison to the whole team. So this has been built up by our consultants, of course, and then I can use it. So I am from the sales, so I use visualization, and exactly it helps me also what Sam mentioned, the yeah, when I have a project and plan our consultants, I can see how much, what is the budget, how much we burned, let's say already, how many hours, how much is available. I can immediately also report it back to the customer by yeah, downloading, creating PDFs and share it with the customer, subscribe to the automatized reports. And this is how I use it as from the sales mainly.
Mm. And just to maybe add on a little bit more, yeah, there's also the compliance and audit aspect of this. So it's not just for pretty visualizations. You know, I use the tool massively, extensively for if a transaction falls out of a particular parameter that, you know, that we've set, I want to know about it, and I want to know about it the next morning. So some of my subscriptions are every day tell me if a transaction breaches this threshold or this criteria that I've set. And that's incredibly useful for, you know, it could be someone's input something wrong, someone's unposted something, someone made a change in a date that's knocked out the numbers. And because I'm seeing it every day, I can spot what, you know, why did that move by 20K? That I need to go and speak to, you know, X to check that out. So you're really, you feel like you're on top of that compliance and audit in a kind of manageable way. It's the legwork's been done by the program in the background.
I hope that's answered your question, Mark. Are there any other questions at this time? I'm not seeing anything in the chat panel, so I'll give it a couple more minutes, and if you do have a question, please feel free to ask now.
It doesn't have to be a question. Does somebody have some experience? Like, does it ring a bell what Sam was presenting today? Do you also work with Excel and you wish to have some kind of tool like this? Or is it something, oh no, I'm fine with Excel? Does somebody want to share a story from your company or from your personal working environment?
Okay, in which case it looks like you've covered off that topic beautifully, Sam. Thank you both, Zdenka and Sam, for your help today. As Zdenka mentioned, we do have a Tableau versus Excel webinar. Zdenka's very kindly posted the link. Please feel free to sign up and register for that webinar. It's taking place tomorrow. If you do have any more questions, we will be reaching out to you and feel free to ask them then. But in the meantime, thank you so much for your attendance today, and thank you again to our hosts.